Hey guys, I plugged my camera in on the back of the computer. Apparently it doesn't like that. So I had to restart everything, but here we are. Now I'm going to reposition you guys. I had no clue. I'm trying to do a different setup today because of where I need you guys at to be able to see. So, hey, how's it going? Who's on here with me? I know there's 6 people on. I'm looking a little warm because it's actually really warm out there today, and I couldn't believe how hot it was. I was like, looked in the mirror and I was like, I'm not ready for this yet. So, hey Joanna, hey Anna, hey Leslie, hey Mary. Oh, thank you, Leslie. Yeah, I just didn't realize it was going to be as warm as it was today. And I was out having lunch with Tasha and her family. When I got home, I was like, I didn't think it was that hot. I just looked like I'd been, ugh. So I was like, okay, quick freshen up. Hey, Dion. Oh, good, Dion. Nice to know. Hey, Dawn. Yeah, I got you guys at a different angle because I've got the serger here, sewing machine here. So I'm hoping I don't have to move you guys around a whole lot tonight. So trying that. Hey, Sarah. Yeah, we'll see how many more people come on. I know a couple of the ladies said they wanted to sew along tonight. So if you guys are sewing along, let me know in the comments. So as always, I want to be able to work at a speed with you guys if you're trying to keep up with me. Otherwise, if you're just watching, that's fine too. It just tells me how slow or fast I can move. So, thanks, Dion. I hope I'm saying that right, Dion. Or is it Diane without the E? I know everybody looks at names and we don't want to mispronounce, and it's so hard sometimes. I know, Anna, they're such a blessing. They're so awesome. I have so much fun with them. Okay, Mary. Yeah, it is so much fun. Oh my goodness. It's a blast. But I'm drinking a ton of water too, so I'm just worried you guys are gonna laugh. Look at this thing. And it's like maybe half gone. Look at this thing. It's like I am so thirsty because it was so hot out. Okay, Diane. Okay, thank you. I was saying it wrong. I was afraid of that, but I was like, oh, thank you. Hey, Dory. Oh, come on, focus. Don't do that. But yeah, I'm going to be refilling this thing. I'm not kidding. I am sucking this stuff down so fast. All right, I don't know how many more are going to join us here. Okay, so I wanted to give you guys a couple of patterns in just a cotton instead of a knit. Amber and I were talking about that. We hate to do everything just in one type of fabric because you may or may not have those fabrics, or you may want to learn things for both. And so the last time we did these, I'm not sure you guys remember those. These were in the cotton, not knit, the cotton, but you can do these in knit. So we did these little sunsuits last time. And then tonight, oh, well, there's my scissors. I remember these scissors I've been looking for. Well, you got to move the sunsuits and you find them. Yay, I told you guys they were here. Anyway, so tonight we're going to do the Ruffle Bloomers. And these you can do a knit if you want to. So be aware it can be done in knit. I think they come out better in a cotton because they need that little bit of stiffness. I know, Anna. I'm a mess. You guys that follow me regularly know I'll lay something down. I'll be like, okay, I know it's down here. Cat's not even telling me where it's at. So it's here. Well, these have been gone for about 2 weeks now. Oh, yeah, since we did those 2 weeks ago. That's how long these have been gone. I was trying to tell you guys about these the other night, and couldn't find them. So it was a moot point. So anyways, I think these bloomers are better in just the straight cotton because they give them a little bit of body to the ruffles and everything. And it just gives it a different look. Now, again, you can do them in the knit. I'm not saying you can't. I'm just saying there is a difference in the way that they're going to lay. Now, you can make the ruffles stand out a little bit on the knit just by how you ruffle them, how long or short width-wise you make them, how you make the ruffles, because we're going to go over a couple of different types of ruffles you can make. Let me see where I put those ones. There they are. Okay. Got to grab these because these are my samples of my other ruffles. So I want to make sure I have those. So lots of variations, guys. The sky's the limit on your imagination when you do these things. So this is just a kind of a loose tutorial on, this is one or two ways you can do these. There's a million ways to do ruffles, guys. So if you know another way you want to do them, or if grandma taught you how to do them this way, you prefer to do them that way, not a problem. There's no right or wrong way to be doing these ruffles. So for those of you that don't know how to do ruffles, then we're going to learn how to do those too. Not hard, guys. They're so easy. And it's actually going to kind of surprise you at how easy they are. And I found a new way to gather on the sewing machine. I was watching a video a couple months ago, and I really wished I would have written down who it was, because I would love to give her the credit for doing this, because it was like an aha moment. And I'm trying to do it, but I think my thread that I'm doing it with is a little, it's probably a little cheap is the easiest way to put it, because I know it's not the Coates and Clark or any of those brands, the Gooderman, anything. It's an off brand. And my thread keeps snapping doing this. And the way it feels, I think it's just because the thread is too cheap. So I'm going to show you how to do it. Just realize, I'll walk you through it, that you've got to have good thread to do this. Otherwise, it'll keep snapping for you like mine does. And it may or may not work for you. And you may want to do it a whole nother way. No big deal. Hey, Cindy. Hey, girl, glad to see you're on. Oh, man, I miss you, girl. I miss you so much. Made a crushed velvet floor. Oh, good. Did you, was that like the ones that we made before, Sarah? The plain, just the plain banded ones? Oh, thanks, Divya. I miss you so much, Cindy. I miss our Tuesday nights already. Oh. They were too few, I should say, too few Tuesday nights. Don't you agree, Leslie? Leslie's on here too, Cindy. So yeah. But anyway, realize that you got to have good thread, and it might take a little bit of practice, because this is like my first time doing it. And it's a game changer, but I got to practice at it myself just a little bit, because there's just a little tweak to it. So no, I'll get to it when we get there. But I just wanted to let you know, when I start doing this and I say, this is the part, when I was talking about the thread being too cheap, you'll know where I'm at. So anyways, we're also going to, if you have a serger, you don't have to have a serger to make these, okay? We're going to talk about both ways, just sewing machine or sewing machine and serger. You will need a sewing machine, though. You can't just use a serger. That's the only bad thing about most of these patterns that I'm working with. I don't know about Amber, but that I'm working with, you're going to need a sewing machine regardless. If you have a serger, that's always optional, because you can always mimic, as long as you've got zigzag on your sewing machine, you can mimic your serger, the effect that you need to get from the serger. It's not the same, but you can do it. So it's not like you have to have a serger on a lot of things. Hey, Sierra. Hey, hey. Yeah, is everybody still laughing about my water? And I'm still walking back here. Cindy, you missed this. Look, look, look. I've been outside a little bit, and I'm a little warm today, and now I'm like dehydrated, and I've sucked down half of this already. So they're like, yeah, I'll be running back and forth to the sink over there to get more water. But anyway, so I know also when I was doing up my strips for the ruffles, I'm not sure I worded the material list correctly. So I said a 7-inch wide strip cut widthwise, and I should have told you of 2 different fabrics. That's the part I forgot. So you're only going to have 2 unless you want to go grab your 3rd one. So I'm telling you right now, you're going to need 3 strips. I'm using 2 colors. I'm using, mine are actually going to be a black base, and then I'm going to have 2 rows of the zebra and 1 row of a pink, just a plain pink. So you can do 3 different colors, 3 different fabrics, 1 different fabric, 2 different fabrics, whatever you feel. You can do them all out of the same as this too. Sky's the limit on that as well, guys. So you can do them on lace even. So there's that. So if you want to buy pre-gathered lace, you can do that, and that's a shortcut. Oh, Sarah, I've been a water baby my whole life. And so I'm always drinking water. You know, we go out to eat or something, my drink of choice is water. And it was like, really, you can have some? I'm like, no, I want water. I can never get enough water. And I don't know, I've been very blessed that I drink water like it's going out of style. I can't imagine how hard it has to be to make yourself drink it if you're not drinking enough. So it's tough. Nita, hey, hey, Mary. Who else is coming on that I'm missing here? Okay, so do I have anybody sewing with me? I know a bunch of ladies on Discord said they wanted to join. Hey, Angela. So just checking. As my usual, just want to know if anybody's sewing with me. And if they are, just raise your hand, shout out. Otherwise, I'm going to get going here. And we're just going to kind of do it at a nice pace. But if somebody's sewing, I want to make sure I go slow enough for you guys. Because there are a few places where it's not hard. It just takes a few minutes to get to the next spot. So. Oh, it's okay, Cindy. You're all right. Okay, I understand, Mary. Yeah, I know most of the kids and stuff are still up, so understandable. Oh, thanks, Angela. Yes, hit the thumbs up, guys. It really does help. It helps all of us. I kind of do, Sarah, kind of. I was like, yeah, I did, but I didn't because I did the other one and all I had to do is put the elastic in. So this is going to kind of tell you guys. So anyways, this is a different ruffle and we'll talk about how to do this one as well. And it just needs the elastic around the legs and at the top. So they're going to look like this, only the ruffle I'm going to do today is going to be a loose one, and we're going to attach it at the top, and then it's going to hang down rather than being sewn through the middle. Okay. So, and this one might be easier to see as well. Different fabrics, 2 different fabrics. And then a single fabric again. So yeah, this is a whole different ruffle. This is a whole different look. It's a little bit less flowy, I guess is the right word, because this one's really caught down, as you can see, really caught down. So I sew through the middle to put this one down. Thanks, guys. Yeah, I was doing good until I got to the elastic, and then I got really slow because it's not that it's hard. It's just I was like, yeah, I was like not feeling that one at the moment, so I never finished them, and I've just got to finish them now. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, if you guys have a serger, I need you to go to your manual and look up how to set it up for roll hemming. The Juki I have, it is, if you go to the manual, let's see what page it's on. I am running the Juki MO654DE. And I know Ediani has that one, and I know that Amber was looking at it as well. So I don't know if she's got it yet or not. But if you have that one, then on the manual, the manual's page 22 tells you how to set up roll hemming. And in case you guys can't understand me, it's backwards, I know, but at least you can see what I'm saying. It's roll hemming. And what that's going to do is this really cool little edge right here. You can see it. And it's a real sweet little edge. And it's super, super easy. Now, if you don't have a serger, you can create the same look with a tight zigzag. And so you just take your zigzag and you set it to a real small height and then put it really close together. You'll have to test it a few times on a scrap piece of fabric, and it's just going to go over the edge, and you're going to catch over the edge. So test it until you get the width and the height that you like. It doesn't, there's no written rule. If you like them wide, awesome. If you like them really skinny, awesome. If you want to mimic this, then they're real super skinny. And I know on zigzags, you can only get so skinny before it probably starts causing issues for you with the sewing. So if you take it way down and all of a sudden your machine's just kind of fighting you, back it off just a little bit on the height until you find where it's not fighting you anymore. There's a sweet spot there where it really doesn't like it much lower than that. Some machines go really low, others just won't. So test, 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 you know, always. So that's how we're going to do these edges. So for the Juki and for your serger, you're going to pull out your, probably on all of them, I'm assuming it's the same, your left needle. So you're going to work with one needle on a roll hem. Oh, good, Divya. Roll hems are so easy, guys. It's just getting the settings on your machine. That's all it is. Now, the thing is, you have to realize when you pull this and then you're done doing all of this. And, oh, it wasn't backwards for you, Leslie, because it was in my camera. I was like, oh, it's backwards. Okay, sorry. Okay, cool. So when you go to sew your pieces together, if you're serging, realize you can do a three thread overlock. And so realize you can do that and leave your one in and do a 3-thread overlock, or put your other needle in and then go back to your 4-thread overlock. So it's just your choice, but you got to redo all your settings. And the only settings on the Juki that we change, it's pretty simple. In fact, it's probably easier than moving the camera. I'm just going to show you guys on the manual here. So it shows you that you remove the needle, it's right there, and then you open up this side case right here, and it's this one right here. There's only one, okay? So you turn that one. I've got mine set at a 1. It says a 1 to 2 on the Jukis. I always run a 1 because that's just the setting I like. You can do both and see what you like. Then that's done. You can go ahead and close that. Then we have a little button here, and it just slides forward. So I just don't know if it's going to focus well enough. And then so it's right here. It's a little button, and it just slides back and forth depending upon what you're doing. Well, it normally sits in the back position, and there's 2 red lines. So you pull it forward to the front position, to that red line. And then the last step that you have to do is you go over to your tension. They call it the stitch length adjusting knob. And there's 2 knobs over here. So on the Juki, I have 2 knobs here. and it's the bottom one. Is it the bottom one? Let me see. No, I'm sorry, it's the top one, because that's my differential feet. We don't want to touch that. So it's this one right here. And I've got a little tiny notch on the side that tells me where things are sitting. It says to set it at a 1 or 1.5. I chose a 1. That's all we do. And she's set up and ready to go. So that I got to deal with in a minute because I broke that. But anyway, this turns out so nice, but it's so tiny. And I just can't get it to focus. Come on, focus. There. And it's just got such a beautiful little stitch that I just adore this. And it's so easy. It's one of those where you can do a whole bunch of these and just kind of kick back and relax after you've got your settings set. And you just kind of do, you know, and you don't have to think. And you just go at it and get it done. Hey, Faye. Faye, were you one of them that said you wanted to sew along? I'm trying to remember. There was about 2 or 3 people that had talked about it. I think Ashley was one of them. And I don't think she's on yet. So anyways, the next thing you want to do before you do any of this, guys, and this is super, super, super important with cotton, okay? Iron, 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 iron. And what I do, set my iron at the hottest temperature I can get. Because once you make these ruffles, you can't iron them again. So you got to iron, iron, iron everything now. And then I will take my mister, and I'm going to tell you guys a little trick here. Okay. So this is my facial mist bottle, and it has the best mister ever. So when I ran out, I filled it up with water, and this is now my water mister for when I iron, and it puts out the best mist for just ironing, and I can sit and saturate it or do a light mist or whatever. So if you guys have any of those, try that. It was an aha moment one day when I ran out, and then I was ironing a couple days later, and I was did not like the thing I was using because it seemed like it just soaked everything just in big drops. And all of a sudden I was like, hey, wait a minute. We have an empty bottle up there. Let me try that. And it was like, wow. So every time I get done using one of those, I save them all and I use them for cleaning supplies and everything. It's amazing. I was like, wow, who would ever thought? You know? Hey, Bianca. So iron these like nobody's business before you start your ruffles. Get them all nice and flat. And cotton tends to, no matter how hard you try to iron it a little bit, it tends to be a little bit fussy. So that's why I just saturate it with water. And then I can finally get it out. If I've got it on a super hot iron, I just take my time. You can't be in a hurry. And some of these cottons, if they're thinner, they're easier. But some of these are thicker, like this zebra. This stuff's a little bit thicker. Not much, but just enough that it doesn't want to play nice until I really get at it. All right. Oh, thanks, Faye. All righty. So iron also for the body part. Make sure that's all nice and ironed, good and flat. So let's quick zip these. And I know it's going to take me a couple of seconds to do this, so I'll just kind of let you guys chat amongst yourselves, okay? Catch all up with each other. But these just zip along so nice. Even these long stretches just whiz along. Of course, there's times I was like, okay, nothing can go fast enough when it comes to sewing. And then I start laughing because that's my mom in me. She would always say the same thing, is the sewing machine could never sew fast enough for her. Well, I was like, I wonder if she would have said that about the industrial machines that go probably too fast and scare all of us. She never saw one of those ever flew. And I think about mine over there. I've still got it It's got two speeds, a low and a high. And they even recommend in the manual that you start with the low. I'm still in low. I don't know that I'm ever going to graduate up to the high there. It scares me. It moves so fast, guys. And then remember, you're going to want to leave a little bit of a tail because you're going to want to weave those back in just to finish them off. Just water, yes, just water. I am so dehydrated right now. I still feel like I could just sit and drink for the next half an hour nonstop. That's how dehydrated I am. And it's Sunday night. So, yeah, tomorrow's Monday. Just water. I'm surprised I'm not drinking coffee. If it was already made, because I love cold coffee when it's hot like this. And I love the flavored coffees. You guys know I love that Bones coffee. And I just got a shipment of that in. Oh my gosh, they have a flavor called Holy Cannoli. That stuff is so good. And then they've also got like an Oreo, and it's not Oreo, but that's kind of the easiest way for me to describe it. It's the cookies and cream ice cream flavor, and that is my favorite cold. Oh wow! And then if you use like your sugar-free sugar, it's just like the best treat ever. Hey, Ediani, how's the new house, girl? How's that going? Are you sewing with me, Ediani? I know you wanted to, but I know you're moving too. So tell me, girl. And Ediani, I was talking about how to set this up, the Juki for rolled hems. Go to your manual, page 22. And that's what I was showing everybody. With the Juki, I don't know if it's any different than the others. So I'm just letting you know, page 22 on your manual. And if you can't find your manual, let me know. I will text you the PDF one that I found online. Super easy. I always just keep it on my phone. Yeah, I kind of figured you wouldn't be able to. I figured you would have like total chaos going. But you know, you're Superwoman here. Who knows? Now, I'm just skimming my knife along the edge of this too. I am not really taking anything off. All I'm taking off is if there's just a little bit of an uneven edge, and it really probably doesn't even matter with a rolled hem because it's going to catch it. But that's just kind of me and my OCD. I like it to be a little bit clean. But yeah, I mean, I'm taking off like maybe a thread or two, pretty much, and that's about as close as I'm getting. And you know, you've got it cut really nice, and you don't even have to do that. And just skirt the edge of it. Don't even run your knife down it. But every now and then I get a little teeny nick from my rotary, and it doesn't cut like a real perfect edge, so I want to make sure I just kind of catch that and get rid of it. Okay, so I've got two of them. I already did one because I wanted to mess with that. That's how fast those go. So the edges are all completely roll hemmed. That's how quick. I wanted to show you also one other example real quick before we start getting into everything else. Just another thought for you guys. So the sunsuit that we did last week was different than this one, but this one is very similar. It's a little halter one. And look, this is the ruffle butt as well. And you can do this on any of your sunsuits. It's the same. It's a little bit wider of a ruffle than what I did on the other. So, you know, you can easily do this, guys. And then you've got these cute little sunsuits. It's true, Mary. True. Yes. So, Mary, on a regular machine, that's where you would do that real thin zigzag instead of the rolled hem that I just got done doing. Yep. Now, the third thing you guys can do, and I don't do it just because it's real labor intensive. So if you're going to do this stuff with a regular sewing machine for your business, just realize this last step that you can do. Yeah, I've done it, and then I've like, nah, zigzagging from here on out. But you can turn a real tiny hem. So both sides, you can turn a real tiny hem and then finish it that way if you wish. But oh my gosh, that takes a long time. So I'm just telling you guys right now, zigzag is the way to go if you don't have a serger. Oh, thanks, Cindy. Yes. Yeah, Ediani, you can set up, because see, I used to do it at kitchen counters all the time. You know, I'd be doing stuff in the kitchen and trying to get some orders out. So I would have one of my machines or my serger or something plopped on my kitchen counter. And that house that I was in had a really big kitchen. And so I had like a counter that was quite a ways away from the rest of like the cooking area. So I could keep everything all over in that corner. I really miss that kitchen, guys. I hate to tell you, but I miss that kitchen. And I could keep everything all over on that far counter and do all kinds of stuff while I was doing cooking or prepping for big meals, if like it was Christmas or Thanksgiving or something. And I was prepping days and days ahead of time, and yet I was still trying to get orders out. Oh, I miss that kitchen now that I think about it. Oh, yeah, Mary. Slight, yes. Right at the edge of the fabric, Mary, but you're going to have to do a bunch of testing. That's the one thing with the zigzag. You'll find the sweet spot. So every sewing machine's got its own little way that it does or does not want to sew past on the zigzag tension. So the width of the stitch and the density. So you got to play around until you figure out where those are at, that A, that you like, and B, that your machine's happy with. And so once you both come to an agreement on where that's going to be, then figure out whether, you know, you want it right at the edge or you want it in a little bit. I mean, you can even, guys, this is the sky's the limit on these ruffles. You could easily do a zigzag, pretend like this white is the actual edge of the fabric, and you could run a zigzag in a little bit and let them fray. And that would be kind of a fuzzy look. And that could be a really cool effect as well. You can do, if you have a serger and a sewing machine, maybe you do two that have the zigzag edges and one has the rolled hem, and that's the one that's in the middle. I mean, it's all this texture thing too. So play around with things. You know, it can be really cool what you do with these. The serger is a game changer, yes. In a lot of ways, a serger can be a game changer. It's just, if you don't have one, I want to make sure you know how you can do it on your sewing machine, because I did not have a serger for the longest time. And I used to always do this. I was adamant, I'm not buying a serger. I don't need a serger. I got a sewing machine, does it all. I'm not spending the money. And then when I started selling those linen pants like crazy, and it was not moving fast enough, my machine just was not able to do the overlock stitch that I was doing fast enough to keep the linen from fraying. And I didn't like the zigzag stitch on that piece. For some reason, it just, to me, did not look as professionally done as that overlock stitch did on my machine. And then I finally had so many orders. I went out and I just broke down and I bought a serger because I knew it was going to be faster. I didn't know how much faster it was going to be. It used to take me about an hour and a half from cutting out to finishing those pants. 45 minutes with the serger to do it. I timed myself and about died when I saw how much difference it made. And it was in the straight stretch. I was able to, because when you do size like 6 and 8 pants, you know, your side seams, those kids are long. Your side seams can take you forever to go on a sewing machine when you're doing an overlock, because it's not doing a straight stitch. It's doing this kind of thing. So it moves so much slower, where a serger is just like, whoom, and I was like, okay, I'm an idiot. I should have had one of those a long time ago. They do, Leslie. There's just something about a ruffle bomb. It is like the sweetest little thing. Oh, Busy Bee, yes. Yeah, those air threaders. I know, I looked at one of those when I bought this one. And oh man, that was a sweet looking thing. But I was like, nope, 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 nope. We don't even know we're gonna like this serger. You just stay right here. Get this. You can sell this one if you're just not liking it. But I minute I did those pants, the very first time I did these pants, I about hugged this thing. I called my girlfriend because she was like telling me for years, you need a serger, you need a serger. I called her and said, okay, you win. She goes, what? And I said, I bought a serger today and I already tried it on pants and all I can say is wow. And she goes, uh-huh, uh-huh. She goes, I'm not going to say I told you so, but I told you so. And I said, you can tell me I told you so because you're right. All right. So that part's done. Now, we do not sew these together yet, so don't get excited. Don't put these together yet, okay? These are still just kind of sitting over here. Everything's all about the ruffles at this point. You've got to get your ruffles 100% done before we start putting everything together, because you have to have them done, because then we pin them all onto here, sew them onto here first, then we put everything together, okay? That's okay. That's okay, Zoa. It's all good. I know that you were gardening with your husband and needed to do some things with him, so that's all good. You know, that's the best thing about these sew-alongs is you guys can watch along no matter where you're at, so you get to enjoy the live chat, and then you can go back and sew with me later. So you kind of get like the first run through, put it in your brain. Second run through, you actually do it with me. So that's all cool. Okay, so I'm going to pull you guys over here and we're going to look at this way to put ruffles, okay? Now, there's a lot of ways to make a ruffle and to gather them. There's about as many ways to gather a ruffle as there is ruffles you can make. I'm going to bury this. That was not smart. Why is it that when you go searching for something, you find other things and then you unbury them and then you bury yourself in the process? I know that probably made 0 sense. Just go with me on that. All right. So I am over at my trusty Janome. Okay. Oh, still pretty far away, aren't you? Let me see what we can do here. Okay, let me adjust so you guys can see, because I really need you guys to see. So, and I knew I wasn't going to be able to do this until I had the camera right there. So I'm going to drop you down and bring you in a little closer. All right, so the one thing I do want to show you guys too, I guess I got to back you up a little bit to show you this, is how this works. So what we're doing is we are running a stitch right here. So I usually set my machine foot right at that edge of that roll hem. And so you can see the rolled hem, but it runs right along the edge of your foot. That's about where I like mine. Now, if you want a little bit more ruffle at the top, all you do is move this over and run your ruffle stitch a little further down. So just figure out how far down you're going to be on your first one. And then that way, you know, for the next two, you can do it exactly the same. So it's all just a matter of, you know, knowing where you're placing things. And if you forget, you can measure it real quick. So don't worry about that. But where I wanted these for now is I'm just going to run them along there. Okay. So, and I broke my thread. So let me rethread my machine. And of course, you guys are watching me. So do you think I can thread it on the first try? No. Any other time, not a problem. And every time I do this, I don't know why, it loops itself a little bit. So I just have to make sure if that happens, double check that you didn't do that because you're going to have a huge mess. So let me show you how this is done. And I kept breaking the thread doing this, and I'm trying to be super, super, super careful. So anyway, the old way to do this is you just run a huge base stitch. So you set your straight stitch for the longest stitch you can get it. Mine is set on a 5. Some people go up to a 6. So that's the very first thing you're going to want to do. Thread up your machine with regular thread, just a regular needle. Set your straight stitch to the largest stitch you can. Okay, so the old way to do this is then you just run a stitch all the length down and you leave a long tail on each end, okay? Then when you come back, what you're going to do is real carefully choose. I usually choose the top thread. One is going to pull just a little bit easier than the other one, so you just figure out which one it is. It's always my top thread, but sometimes not, and then sometimes I have to go to the bottom. Well, this one I kind of got all, I don't know what I did. I kind of screwed it up, so it doesn't want to pull it all. But anyway, that's what you do, and you just have to be super, super careful and keep real close because here you can snap it as well. You don't want to be all the way out here pulling because you're going to snap immediately if you're pulling this far out. So you want to get way up on top of it, and you're going to pull, and this is once you're done. Okay, once you've got all this out, you're not going to do this with your machine. I'm showing you this way because I'm going to do it a different way, which is a game changer. So I was watching YouTube one day, and for some reason, a video came up and said, easiest way to ruffle ever. And I went, what? So I went and watched this girl. And again, I wished I knew who it was so I could give her the credit because this is not me. So what she did, still set everything up the same way I just told you to do. And make sure you leave a very long tail when you set it down. So always pull out a long tail over there. So when you start, and I'm going to do this again on a flat one, so don't worry. You don't have to worry about this, but I want to finish this one up. You always want to put your needle down before you do anything else. Put your needle down. Well, she's like, so real slow, and just hold on to this top thread up here while it's sewing. So you're giving tension to it, and with you tensioning it, it ruffles in the back. Well, the very first time I did it, I think I gave it too much tension because it snapped pretty quickly. So again, test a little bit if you're going to do this, but watch this. And watch behind it. see how it's ruffling up? And I just take it real slow. And I get to the end here, and then I pull out another really long tail and cut. And look at how that did that. It's already ruffled. I don't have to do anything else. Game changer. Hey, Sam, it's okay. Don't worry about being late. It's all good. Oh, good, Anna. Make sure you send me a picture. I want to see it. Okay, so I'm going to do this on these others, okay? So you can kind of watch it again, but I'm going to learn how to do this because, oh my goodness, what a huge time saver for me. And trust me, you will snap that thread when you do the long tail. So I would use, a lot of times what we used to do when I was younger is you would run one stitch, like say here, and then go down about 1/4 of an inch and then run another one and then pull the two together. And it didn't snap as much when we did that. So you can do that as well if you prefer to do it that way. Some of you guys may have a ruffler foot and know how to use that. I don't know how to use those. I've got one, and I've never taken the time to watch how to do it because this thing, I'm going to show you if I can find it real quick what this thing looks like. One time I can't find it. I didn't think ahead of time. I should have grabbed it. Oh, here it is. Okay, so this was my mom's. I never saw her use it either. That's a ruffler foot. And I just need to sit and figure out how to use it because it's supposedly supposed to work really well. So I don't know. When I was a kid, I used to look at that and go, interesting looking little contraption. So anyway, if you guys ever see these, or if you have a machine that came with it, that's what it is. That's the ruffler foot. And I know everything feeds through here and stuff. I just got to sit and look at it someday. Yeah, I'm sure they are easy to use, Dawn. I just never have. I've never used it, so I just got to mess with it. Okay, I'm just reading your comments, making sure I'm not missing anything. So, okay, long tail in the back. And we're all learning how to do this new way together. And I'm hoping I don't snap it this time because I snapped it way too many times on that other one. So put your foot down and just go slow. And I figured that out the first time. You have to go slow. And that's how I snapped it too. So I was going too fast. And every now and then I have to stop and readjust the thread that I'm holding on to because it kind of seems like it slips around in my fingers and it wants to come loose. And then this pink is just a little bit lighter weight. So it's going to ruffle a little easier than that zebra print. My lead foot here. It's hard not to let it keep going. But anyways, back to the size of the ruffles here, guys. I told you to cut a 7-inch ruffle or a 7-inch wide piece, and then I cut that in half. So these are 3.5-inch wide pieces. I just told you to use a 7-inch because it's easier sometimes to cut that off of cut one off of your big yardage of fabric and then cut that in half again. And I'm not sewing the straightest. I'm more worried about snapping. It doesn't really matter because I'm going to just run with this tightness of this ruffle. And I'll show you why. Because I did the other one and I tightened it up a little bit and I really shouldn't have. Okay, so long tail. Then the other thing I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to tie a knot into the end here. Okay. So I'm tying a knot out of my long tail, and I don't want it to move. So that's why I'm doing that, because I can move these a little bit. Let me grab this one and show you guys a little better. So see, when you pull, see how easy it is to move it? So I don't want those to move again or snap. So I'm just going to tie ends or knots on both ends. Because when you start messing with this, things can move a little bit and it'll make you a little crazy. So look how easy that was. It's like total game changer. I really wish I remembered who that girl was. I may try and go find her video and look it up again and tell her that's like genius. You did, and isn't that cool? Yeah, I think my thread is just too cheap, and that's why I was having issues. But you go so slow that I think that's the key too. Just don't get in a big hurry. Move slow. So now we're going to go to the one that got me last time because it was a little bit thicker. Okay. Needle down. Long tail in the back before you put your needle down. Remember that. Okay. Hanging on to the thread. And away we go. Ready to lose that thread again. Long thread and tie your knots. And you can always kind of, if you have some areas like at the end that aren't quite as ruffled as you like, just grab that one thread and create just that little bit of ruffle at the end. When we put that needle down, especially to start, that can happen, that you might get in just a little, you get in just a little too far. So you just can take this edge and kind of just pull it a little bit if you need to, and then tie your knot to hold it. Okay. So yeah, that one worked much better. And then we can adjust a little bit if they're not ruffled, you know, if it's not evenly spaced. Now that you've got it all nice and sewn and tied, then you can go back and adjust the ruffles. If you don't tie it and you adjust the ruffles, they're going to start coming off on the end. And that's where you're going to end up having to pull the thread again and put the ruffles back in. So, you know, depending upon if you want this tighter, a super tight, really tight ruffle, you're going to need 2 widths of fabric. This is 1 width, and I'm using a 3 to 6 size, 3 to 6 month size, and it covers the bottom, but you're going to need, if you're going up any more, you're going to need to seam it together and get an extra length on, because you're going to run out. Just letting you know, because I did that real quick with this other one, testing to see how ruffled I could make it for that, and I realized, oh yeah, can't do that, because I forget how much I use on these others. It's been probably about a month since I made them, and I can't remember how much, and I must have had to put 2 lengths together to get them as tight as I got them. Okay, now I'm going to move you guys again. So if this makes you sick, hang with me. I know, Leslie, isn't that like, yeah, it just blew my mind. Saves so much time too. So I highly recommend that, you know, if it's hard at first, just keep trying. It's totally amazing. Okay, now I'll bring you guys back up. All right, so now we're going to move on to putting the ruffles on. You guys back up where you need to be here. All right, so you're going to take, oh man, put you too far up. It's either you get to see my face or you get to see the table. Sorry, guys. I guess you're going to see the table. So take your the back parts. So your front part, once you cut these apart, if you really look, it's kind of easy to see. This is the front, and you can tell the legs cut higher here than the back does, okay? So if you totally cannot remember, what I usually do is I'll take a pin and I'll put it in the piece I'm not working, and I'll take the pattern itself, the pattern piece, and just pin it so that I'll know just at a glance, okay, that's my front, and I'll just put a pin in there so that I don't get confused. You shouldn't on this one, but there are some patterns where the pieces are fairly similar and it can be real easy to get confused. Okay, so let's take this and we're going to lay out our ruffles. And the easiest way is you start bottom to top, okay? So grab your pins. Can't use the clips for this. It has to be pins this time. About the only time you're going to hear me tell you guys can't use clips is when we're doing some things that it really has to be. Okay, so this is one that I got a little carried away with, so I got to cut off a bunch of my threads here. The one good thing, though, about having the ruffles, if you've got something that's like this, and you kind of have all these threads, make it the bottom ruffle. So if you end up not clipping threads real good at the top, they'll be hidden underneath the top ruffles. You won't even see it. So I don't have to clip these too terribly close. And I really don't want to clip them too close. Chances are you're not going to sell the one that you've done this to. You're probably going to just remake it. But for us tonight, I'm just going to do this on the bottom. Okay, so you decide where you want your first one to be. And so what you can do is lay it out. Oh, good night, Diane. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. So what I do, I usually start my first one on the bottom right here, where you can see that the leg comes up and then it goes up for the side, okay? Hey, Evemar. All right, so take the first one, and I will lay just kind of this edge as close to that. I probably put where I put the stitching for the ruffle about 1/4 of an inch above that point that I just showed you for my first one. It really doesn't matter. Just get it in that vicinity. So I do both sides first. Now you got to make them straight though. So yeah, you get them in the vicinity, but get them in the same vicinity on both sides. So decide on the first one. And then after that, you put the second one on the other side, okay? And then this is where just kind of laying it on the table, just kind of flatten it out. and then pin it. And you're going to want to pin quite a bit on this. Because when you get into sew, you got quite a few layers of, not layers as in lots of fabric layers together, but these ruffles create quite a bit of bulk. So you're going to want to really pin them. So when you take them over and sew them, it can be a little, oh, they'll move on you, I guess I should say, once you get going. And it can frustrate you because if these get a little off, it'll show. So just pin a lot. I put one about every inch or so. Tasha, did you join us? I know she was talking about she might, but they were doing stuff with the kids yet. Guys, they're amazing. They're such a cool family. I hope you all get to meet them. They are so fun. It's been such a blessing to have them here. And I didn't know they were going to be in my backyard. And so that was so fun when I found out they were actually here. I knew they were coming to Texas, but nobody comes to me where I'm at. They always go, you know, Dallas, Houston, that kind of thing. So that's where I thought they were going. I just kind of went, oh. And then when I found out different, I was like, what? Really? You're going to be here? Oh, it's been such a fun week. All right. I'm just going to put one more on this end just because I see it's got, if you see it's got a lot of bulk in an area. I mean, the first couple you do, your ruffles may not be evenly spaced. Don't be hard on yourself. Once you get it done, you may not even notice it. So, okay. So the first one is at least pinned on, okay? So I can hold it up and I'm looking through the light and it, you know, just get it fairly straight because in all reality, when they wear it, it's not going to be straight. It's going to be around. So you just don't, you know, you don't want it like this, you know, just do the best you can to kind of get it good and straight visually and you'll be fine. Okay, I'm going to put this on. So when you sew through, you're going to go and take your machine back to probably about a 3.5 to a 4 stitch. I wouldn't go much smaller. There's a lot of bulk here. And you don't need it to be any smaller. It's going to hold it. And since we're also, what we're doing is we're going to catch it in the side seams too. So you don't necessarily have to go back and forth. Just make sure you get all the way to the edge. So start right at the edge and sew off on the other edge because you want to make sure everything's there when you go to sew your side seams because that's going to help secure it even better. All right, so I'm going to throw this on there real quick. And I always start with my needle down. I always put my needle down and then I sit and kind of just make sure everything's looking good and I pull my first pin. So pull your first pin and then just sew over that based stitch. So where we basted it and pulled the ruffle, you're going to see that thread. So right on top of that thread. And then pull your pins out as you sew. You can pull usually 1 or 2 at a time because it should be going for you. You should be able to do that pretty easily without it moving around. I wouldn't go more than 2 though. So now it's sewn on. We're going to put this next one on. All right. I'm doing the pink next. Now this one, I didn't gather as much as the bottom one because I knew that bottom one, I didn't have it quite long enough. And so I had to cheat. And for the sake of us, this is just a sample. This is what happened when I had to cheat. So it's gathered real nice, real nice, real nice. Oh, crud, I'm going to run out of fabric. I got to make it. So I kind of had to loosen it up right here and then keep gathering. Well, I know it's not going to show in photos, but it also makes me know I can't do that on the regular ones. So I'm pulling it a little bit less for the next one and the top one. And then it really won't show so bad. I mean, this one's a little too long, too loose still, but it's better. So I'm just going to run with this one for now. So the next one up, you probably want to go, let me see what that is. Measure that for you because what I think it is may not be exactly what it is. Let's see. So I got to tell you guys to leave enough room for the casing at the top. So I'd go about 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch apart. So I'm measuring from, and I'm always taking either, you can either take from the top of the ruffle here, the top of the ruffle there, to the top of the bottom ruffle, or you take from your sew line here to your sew line on the ruffle. Always use the same point for measurement. Doesn't matter which one, just always use the same one. So about 1/2 to 3/4. You might get an inch. I'm not thinking by the time we put the casing in, you could. That's where the optional bias comes in, and I'll show you guys how to do that. But if you're not going to do the bias, then keep these about 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch apart. If you're going to do the bias tape for the waistband, then you can probably go about an inch apart. So just realize when we get done, it'll make a little more sense to you why. But I'm going to do the regular casing without the bias tape on this one to show you how to do that. And then I'm also going to show you how to do the bias tape on the legs if you prefer to do that for the elastic. And that's usually what I prefer to do, is the bias tape on the legs. It gets a little fussy otherwise if you're just trying to turn a casing. It's easy to turn the casing up here on the waist, just a little harder on the legs. All right, so, and you're not going to want to cut this extra off if you have any until you've got it sewn on. So just saying, because it'll come completely undone on you and it'll be frustrating. And I'm probably not even going to cut it off until I do my side seams. So I'm going to do all my side seams on my serger and let my serger cut it off. Everything, it's just a controlling of that ruffle, because the minute you break that, and if you've already got it sewn and it starts rattling on you, it is going to frustrate you so much. And just straighten everything out again. And it really doesn't matter if that base stitch that you put in for your ruffle, if it's 100% completely straight. All you're doing is creating the ruffles. And nobody's going to see it because that top stitch is going to kind of hide it anyways. That's the one thing about ruffles is your stitching. It hides so much of your stitching. It's very, very easy to be forgiving with it. Again, about an inch apart on the pins. I just get in and start placing them where I'm seeing that maybe I need them, and they still end up being, oh, about an inch apart, half an inch and an inch apart. The sad thing is you really have to pin these down, sew them, then pin the next one and sew them. You really don't want to try and pin them all and then sew them all at one time. It's going to be a little fiddly, and I can guarantee you will end up poking yourself. All right. Sew this one on real quick. I'm also big about, I learned this as a young girl. Mom always showed me this. So as you're sewing along, sometimes some of the ruffle parts, because you're closer to the top or whatever, starts kind of popping up a little bit and you want to smooth it back down before you keep going. I'll grab my seam ripper, which is what Mom taught me to do, or I'll grab the edge of my scissor. And as I'm sewing, I'll just real carefully push that down and put it under the foot instead of really having to stop a lot. And if you guys get used to doing that movement with it, you can even use like a butter knife. I use a butter knife on my industrial machine, and it works so slick. But this, anything, it just smooths it right fast for you. Game changer on that too, guys. Now, I'm not trimming anything over here. And actually, you won't have to run these ends, now that I think about it, on these top ruffles. You won't have to thread these back through because they're going to get caught in that side seam when we search the side seams. All right, so we've just got the last one to go. Another half an inch up. I don't know why it feels like it's so dark in here. I think I'm actually going at about 3/4. That's where mine are sitting. This last one takes a little bit longer because you just got a little bit more going on here that you're dealing with. It's not hard. Just got to be realize things aren't going to lay quite as flat as the first one did or the second one. And also sometimes just visually check to make sure everything's looking right, because when you go to straighten this out, your eye is going to tell you more than you realize if you're off. Trust your eyes. Yes, Zoa, where were you guys hiking today? Man, that sounds like a lot of fun. It was a beautiful day here, though. Couldn't believe it. Really, it was hot, but it wasn't like unbearable hot. It was just that, oh yeah, summer's coming kind of reminder. And then the clouds would come out every now and then, so it wasn't so bad. These new pins I bought they're extra fine. I bought them for the knit, and I'm using them for this. They're really sharp, just telling you. And they have, I really like them because they have glass heads, so I can use them with the iron and not worry about them melting. But they're extra fine so that they go through your fabric a lot easier. But they also, since they're extra fine, they tend to want to bend a little easier too. So figuring that one out. Amber, hey girl, how you doing? Been meaning to text you, Amber. Every time I think about it, it's like, oh, no, it's way too early where you're at, or you're probably sleeping, so I need to text you. Okay, so we're gonna put the third one on. All right. Now, if you want a fourth row, you can do it. But if you're going to do the casing up at the top, you won't get a fourth row. If you're going to do the bias tape, you can get a fourth row on, okay? So just realize if you want 4, you're stuck with bias tape, okay? Now, also, I'm just looking at this. It's just my sample, but I would use bobbin thread to match your fabric, because the white against the black, it shows real bad how uneven stuff is. And it really doesn't matter that it's uneven. Hey, Narrow. So that really matters not. It's just, it looks bad if you have a thread like that. And it's really, really takes a lot of practice to put these on super straight. So don't magnify that if you don't have to. All right, so I had this set up to do roll hemming, so I need to take it back to do serging again. So let me set that back up one more time. I'm just doing the 3. I don't want to mess with putting the 4th one in and then having to go back and rethread it. I mean, I didn't rethread a whole lot. I didn't take it out, excuse me, too far. I just took it out back and far enough and then put the thread just kind of up. I didn't completely unthread it. So I have very little I have to take back, and it won't take but a second, but I just don't want to deal with it, because threading this you've got to have tweezers and stuff, and I don't have any of those down here. So I'm just going to go ahead and do the 3 thread overlock. Let me just make sure I don't have to do anything special. Reset everything back to where it was. And anytime you do this, I just go straight into this. I always test on another piece of material. Even if you've done it a million times, always test it. Because the day you don't, that's the day you're gonna mess it up a little bit. I'm gonna find something to test it on real quick here. I had something, I just had something. Here it is. Yeah, looks good. Okay. So I just reset my settings back to where they were. And a 3 thread looks just a little bit different than a 4 thread if you guys haven't seen a 3 thread. But I don't know if you can see it, but you see how it looks just a little bit different there. The back still looks the same for the most part, but it's just the other side, the top side. You're missing your other thread. So, all right, so I know that's going to be good. So what we want to do is we want to put the front to the back. And you can go and use your clips now on this. I don't have my clips close, so I'm just going to go ahead and pin real far in so I don't have to pull my pins. Now this is where it gets a little tricky, okay? So you got to make sure you're catching just the edge of everything. So pull all your threads out. So all your threads are getting pulled out, okay? And let me get this one situated first, and then we'll deal with pinning where the ruffles are. All right, so I've got all my threads, and I'm looking to see where that is. Now I want to lay my ruffle along, and you got to just pull it in so that everything creates like its own. It's like a sandwich. You're doing like a 3 or 4 layer sandwich right there. So I'm pulling all my ruffles so that they all line up with the edge. So the edges of the ruffles line up with the edge of the fabric. And then I'm doing that as well. And that's just going to make them lay really nice. And then when you get down to this bottom part, you're going to have to turn it just a little because you're going to want to catch this last little bit, but turn just a little. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and pin, and then we're going to double check everything. See, that's the one nice thing. I'm going to pin in a different way on this though, because I'm going to pull these pins when I get to the sewing part. I really want to hang on to this a little better. Because you still want the edges to the bottom edges to be out and to be free. But you can catch these top ones up here and they'll be fine. So you're down to where those come together, and just make sure everything is nice and flat. See how they're flat? Because I had this one turned and that would look really funny. So you want to make sure you go in and check everything's flat. And that's why I love pinning a lot of these. Now, if I pin this one more time, then when I go to put it underneath the foot feed, I can pull that pin out when I know it's good and secure and everything's nice and flat before I start sewing. It's just purely to get it under that foot feed and make sure everything's laying where it's supposed to be laying before I start stitching. All right, so now we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Now this is going to be a little trickier Let me think here for a second. I may retell you how to do this because I don't think that's going to work. Now that I look at that, the way I did that, it's going to be different. Okay, we are going to have to do something different on this. Okay, so since this one, these are longer, what I need to do is I need to roll hem the edge. So I'm going to go back and reset this to roll hem real quick. I forgot. That's where working with me, we've got to kind of work through these things. Okay, set back to roll hem. Yeah, because otherwise your two edges won't look the same. I forgot about that. Okay, so let's real quick roll hem this. And the cutter's going to do the cutting for me. It's going to catch that ruffle just like I was telling you guys. So we're all golden. Everything's going to be good. I'm going to do just one at a time. And I'm going to unpin all of this. There we go. And it's okay that you can do this one, like you can lay this one down and then do it, and then lay the second one down and do it, or you can do them both at the same time. Whatever you feel comfortable doing. I just want to make sure everything's lined up the way it's supposed to. Break it going here. And pull everything out of the way but the one ruffle that you're working on. You don't want to catch any of this other one. And the bad thing is when you're having to gauge, this is just kind of the way you're going to have to do it if you don't want to worry about losing your... Yeah, see how easy that was? So I've got that. Pulled it right off there. Now I'm going to catch that, and I didn't quite get that in the roll hem, and that's okay. I'm going to catch that in the seam, that little bit. That's not even going to matter. It's this part that's got to stay free. This part does not have to, so I'm going to catch that up there. So I'm going to do one more. I'm going to pull all this back and figure out, see, you can tell right here is kind of where you got to start your roll hem. It doesn't have to be super perfect because you'll catch all of that. You got to get, close though. You can't get way out here. You got to get close, but it doesn't have to be 100% close because you can pull this part in, and if it's a little bit longer, it's no big deal. There we go. So now we can go see how it just real easily did that? Now I can just reset my machine again and we'll pin these together on the other side. Little things like this, I didn't work through my head. In the minute I start doing this, I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't work through that very well, did I? Why it's so dark in here? It's not dark on the camera, but for me it feels like it's really dark. Okay, so I'm catching the top part, pinning, pulling the bottom part to the inside, so it's not going to be caught in the seam. And I'll show you guys again. Pulling all the bottom free edges apart and setting this where it's supposed to be. I always spend lots of time with my pinning. I want to make sure. Why those? Oh, I see what I did. Okay. They weren't lining up, and I was like, something's not right. And I pulled too far. Laying it flat does help, because then you can work one ruffle at a time. And once you've done these a few times, you'll just breeze right through it. The first time you do stuff is always the lengthiest and the most tedious. So just have patience. Oh, these pins bend so easily. Okay, and I want one more just for safety's sake. Okay, so what we got going on here? I want to double check that I've got those right, because I don't think I have these pulled in far enough on this side. Yes, they don't. Let me catch them. One ruffle at a time, and I didn't do that over here. I was trying to do all three, and that's what happens. My edges would have gotten sewn in. Now, if you want to catch your edges, you can. I just want my ruffle on this one to be floaty and loose, but nobody says you have to. You can just sew them flat and sew them down tight, and it's all good too. I've done that. These are all sewn flat and tight, but that's kind of what these are meant to do. But these, you can either let them flow completely free or you can set them flat. But I'm going to go ahead and just let them flow a little bit. So as you can see, everything's pulled. Let's see here. You can see this. Everything's pulled to the side on the inside. So here's my seam that I'm going to do. And I've pulled them all. On both sides. So now I'm going to serge. I'm going to do the one side that I can go from the top down to these first, just as a test to make sure everything's going good, but I got to make sure everything's out of the way too. And I'm going to take a narrower hem on that. Okay, setting my settings back again. Double check one more time. What do I do with this? Good. Make sure when you do this, you pull your pins while you're sewing. Nothing will screw up your knife quicker than a pin. Do the other side now. Now I can go top down on this side too. It's just hard with the pins, so I'm going to go from bottom up and just pull as I go. I prefer to start where there's nothing going on and work my way down to the bulk, but I don't have it pinned correctly on this one, so just deal with it. And I'm just running at the edge of my knife there. I'm not really cutting much off because I don't want to get into the ruffle. Okay. So let's test this real quick. There we go. And they're caught. Now you can catch them better if you want, or you can leave them free. So this leaves them free. But I've done where you catch the edges too. So that's up to you guys how you want them to look. You can test it, do a sample of each. You don't have to, sew the whole part. Just take 2 pieces of fabric and do a little tiny ruffle area and sew down or sew not down and decide what you like best as well. You don't have to sew a full sample like this to find out. So there's that. Now we are going to have these edges right down here. We're going to have to weave in. And I know Amber's shown you how to do that with a tapestry needle. So that's what I would do with that. All right, so let's move on. We're going to do the bottom part now. And I probably would be serging black in black, but since that would involve rethreading, I'm not going to do that. Oh, thanks, Nero. So go ahead and we will just pull this together. Those of you that need to clip it. I'm just going to go ahead and sew it real fast. Okay, so now we've got the bottom part done. Now we're down to the home stretch, guys. We just got to get the elastic in. All right, so let's set a casing. What I always love to do is either zigzag across the top or serge, your choice. But I always like to do that first. It just really helps control everything for you. It lays everything so much nicer when you finally go to do it. These little steps like this, I never used to do them, and I used to fuss hard with stuff. And it would take me forever to get things to lay really nice. And when I started doing this, man, it was such a snap. Everything just laid super perfect. I could get in there, turn edges, and I don't know why, it just made it tameable. So that's what I do. I work with it that way, and then I just move on from it. So you guys can try it the other way if you want, but if you are struggling, I recommend serging or finishing the edge off and see how that goes for you. I do that with hems. I do that with everything. So, all right. Get rid of all my junk there. Again, I'm doing the 3 needle on this because I just don't want to go back and redeal it. You can do 3 or 4. All right, so we've got our nice little edge. Now, take your elastic. The pattern has lengths already for you. This pattern was so good. I've used this pattern a ton. So if you guys don't even want to do the ruffles, just do a regular cloth diaper cover. This is a great pattern too. But your elastic lengths are on there. It gives you the leg sizes and the waist sizes for all of the sizes. I mean, this thing came with some great sizes. So you know exactly what you've got to cut. You cut 2 of whatever size you're doing, and then 1 for the waist. So I'm doing the 3 to 6 month size. And so this one says to cut a 17-inch. Well, I use, this is 3/4, 7/8. I don't know, I got this stuff off of Amazon, guys. And it's kind of funny because I didn't realize this came out of Austin. I could have pretty much driven up there one day and got it. But this is Mandala Crafts. And it comes in a nice big roll. I mean, there's a lot on here. It's 3/4 inch, 50 yards. And it really wasn't that expensive. I can't remember what I paid for it. It's been just long enough. But yeah, so this is 3/4 inch. So we need to make our casing 1 inch. If you're using 1/2 inch elastic, then 3/4. Okay, so always about 1/4 inch more. You can still do 1 inch and use 1/2 inch elastic if you want. All right, so what I do is I'll go in with this very first one, and actually it's easier if you turn it inside out to do this. And I'll measure 1 inch down. I just fold it over and eyeball it to begin with, and then I get my ruler in there and measure it. Okay, so I got 1 inch there. Now what I'm going to also do is double check. Okay, I think I'm going to go a little bit more because that's looking like it's going to push it pretty hard on my 3/4. So I'm going to go 1 1/4 inch and see what that looks like. So I'm going to push that down 1 1/4 inch. Yeah, that's much better. Okay, so I'm running with 1 1/4 inch on 3/4 inch. And then pin the first one. And I usually go kind of right in the middle on the first one. And then once you've got that, you can kind of turn it and eyeball that it looks straight, and then measure over here at your side seam until you get your 1.25 inches there. You're going to be really close when you eyeball it. I just eyeball it so that it's going in the right direction, and then you just have to keep kind of pushing it until you get to where it needs to be. It's hard to see black against black here. So it's like to double check. Yep, we're good. There's nothing worse than trying to thread elastic through a casing that gets a little skinny just in some areas. So then when you do your sides, you do this one and then the center one, it should automatically allow you just to place your middle one there. I always measure, but it should just be the right one. Right measurement for you. Yep, right there. So come over here and catch your side again. Get that to where it needs to be. Always double check with my tape. I've done too many times where things get a little skinny when I get to the side, and oh, it's tough to get that through. Now you should be pretty good since you got your sides to catch your back. It should just automatically line pretty nice for you. Always double checking with my elastic before I call it good. Okay. So there, you've got that turned. And then what I want to do is I just want to do one more check. Since we're dealing with these ruffles, I want to make sure that when I go do that, see, I'm going to catch that ruffle and my ruffle is off. So I did get my ruffle on straight and it's going to show on this one just a little bit. So what I would probably do in this instance is I'm going to back away from this 3/4 inch and I'm going to go down to a smaller elastic so that I can pull a little bit of this waistband up and then it won't show so much, because then you can really make it not show at all. It's off by a little bit, but it's not bad. But it really magnifies it just because it's black. It really magnifies it a lot. So I'm probably off by about 1/4 inch there. So I can fudge that, but I have to go down to a smaller elastic. So I'm not going to do that right now, but just realize that's what I would do. So how would you do this when you finish it up? So then, and I'm sure you guys have all seen this, you go ahead and you sew right along here. So I usually sew right through where I serged or where you zigzagged. I just love to put, that's kind of like a track for me, so I know that it's nice and straight. So I'll sew through that, and then you go all the way around and you leave an opening, which I usually tend to do it more in the back than I would in the front, because there's nothing going on in the front. And so it's going to be a little easier to see that back and forward stitch that you're going to end up doing at both sides. And then when you go, and I'll explain this a little better again, but when you go to feed it through and then go back and restitch over, it's just going to show a touch more in the front because there's nothing else going on. So you really want it not to be there. So I'll do it maybe even over on the side or something. So anyway, what we would do is then you'll sew all the way around except for, I'd probably leave about, how far is that? About 3 inches. I'd leave about 3 inches open. Okay. So then you're going to back stitch at both of those sides. Then you're going to take your elastic and you want to get a safety pin. And you're going to put the safety pin, pretend this is a safety pin. I have them, but they're over there. I don't want to walk away. And you're going to put the safety pin through there. And then you're going to thread it all the way through. Gets a little fiddly. Hey, Sandy. And Sandy. Sorry, that's kind of cute. Tasha, hey, you're here. So you're going to thread it through. Now, when you get to this side seam here, it's going to get a little tough to put it through. So don't be surprised. Just take your time. What I try and watch when I'm threading is I want to take my elastic and go with the direction that this is folded over so that it just glides over it. Because if you get to this and you're trying to go off of it, you're going to hit that and you're going to be bumping it. Now, it just may happen because maybe one is going the right direction and the other one is not. It happens once in a while if you don't get that done. But it just takes a little bit to get past that. That's why you want to use also your safety pin, because then you've got that head and it'll help you. You'll get through it. It'll just take you a little bit. You'll just kind of have to keep fiddling with it and pushing it through. So anyway, you put it through there. Then when you get back to that 3-inch opening, you're going to pull your two sides together. You want to make sure one of these sides is way out. So if you're getting to a point where you're going to pull it through, let me get that, because this is going to get a little crazy to tell you guys unless I can show you. Because if you've never done this, me telling you and not showing you might be a little confusing. Okay. So actually, and then do it like this. It's just enough that I've done this enough times to know. Thread it through like that and then close so that you're catching it a few times. You can do it this way, but I find that this edge here pulls back on me. So if I take that one extra little stitch, it stabilizes everything, gives me a longer area to work with on this pin to push it through. So here's the head that I'm going to use as my guide. So when I get going through this, and so I'm going through and I've got pushed through, push through, push through. And then I get around to the other side and this is starting to come through. So I've pushed everything through, but yet you've still got a ways to go and you've got an edge right here. And all of this is threaded through there, yet you still got to go around. You're afraid you're going to pull it through. When I get to this point, I'll just take and pin it so that you can keep pulling on it, and then that's never going to pull through, and that will hold it for you until you get everything pulled through, and then you can pull on the elastic when you need to sew. So that just helps you stabilize everything while you're trying to pull everything else through. The first couple times you do it, you may end up pulling it through, and then you have to restart over. That's why I'm telling you, pin it so that that doesn't happen to you. So when you get around, so you've threaded this through and you've come all the way around. So we're all the way around here. Take this out. Take this out. Make sure your elastic did not twist while you're doing this, because every now and then it'll happen. Lay this on top of each other so they're like that, okay? Overlap them about an inch, pin them back together again. Then I take them over to the sewing machine and you're going to sew back and forth here, sew down, leave your needle in, sew across, we're doing a box, sew up and sew back and forth. And then that's going to secure that. So should this ravel just a little bit through washing, then it's secured on all four sides and it's never going to come loose. But you don't want this to be twisted, because if after you've done that, if you have to go rip it out, it's not fun. I've done it And it's just because you twisted it, okay? So easy. And then you can also, if you prefer, some people do where they sew down, sew at an angle, and then sew down so it's like an N. You can do that as well. But I like to sew a minimum of 3 to 4. I don't like the 2. For me, that just stabilizes it in every direction. Okay, so now we get to the leg part. This is where I don't, and I'm going to unpin this, guys, because it's just, since it's off, I'm not going to finish it because it will drive me crazy. I'll have to go rip it up. So I want to fix it, and I will go back and fix this. Okay, so we're at the leg part. This is where I'm like, you can still do it like we did the other, but I prefer this method with the bias tape. You can buy bias tape or you can make bias tape. I just made some real quick. It doesn't matter when it's on these legs if it's cut on the bias. So I just cut an 1.5 inch strip down the width of a fabric. I just grabbed a scrap. It ended up being, how long is this? About 31 inches, which is going to be plenty. Okay, so you take the 1.5 inch scrap, you go over to your iron, which is really, really hot, and you remember this we talked about earlier? So you lay it down on your ironing board, and it's completely flat right now. I wet this very first part down about 2 inches, okay? Then on the board, you're going to fold one halfway to the middle and the other halfway to the middle so that you've got this running right down the middle. And then on this side, it's nice and straight finished. So you've got this little lip thing. So you set your iron on this area for, you know, a little bit just to kind of let it set it in and let it dry. Then get going. You're going to be really surprised if you lay this down on your board really flat and take one hand and just start. It'll just do it for you automatically if you don't, you know, don't sit and fuss with it. When you first start, you might have to fuss for like the first inch or two. But after you get going and you keep your iron on it, it just automatically, that iron holds it down, and all you're doing is just guiding it to fold, and it'll fold for you, and you just stop and put it back down. You don't have to wet it any further. I just wet the very first part to get it started. And then you'll be surprised. It'll just automatically, you just start laying it flat, and you've got to have a long length on there. So as you're going, you lay your iron down, and then your other hand, you just real carefully just helping it do what it's already doing up here, because it's already starting it to go, and you're just helping it. And then you move your iron again and go a little ways and move your iron, and you got bias tape. It's so fast. And you can use the color to match. You can use a contrasting color. I mean, you can have some really fun ones where you do a plain color and then this part becomes like this really bright neon because you really want it to show. And that's cool. You can do that. So since we're using the skinnier elastic for this, see how it's gonna create the casing, and it's gonna fit. Come on. It'll fit right in there. So here's my elastic. I don't know, that light is just not letting everything focus like it's supposed to. Focus. Come here. So anyway, there's the elastic. You can kind of see it. And then here's the width of the casing. So how do we sew this on? So easy, guys. This is so easy. I always start down at this bottom seam. So you're going to open this up, just this one. You don't have to open the other side, but you know, if it's easier for you, you can do it. And you lay this edge on edge there. And then you're going to sew right on that seam. Right there is where you're going to sew. Now, let me do this the right way. Helps if I show you in the right direction. You got to start with everything on the outside, okay? So you're starting down here, so your seam's finished. I just always like to start on the left-hand side. So I will pin this. I'm not going to cut it, and I'll show you why. I'll pin the first one, and then you can pin it the whole way if you need to. I've gotten to where I just pin the first couple of them until I get going, and then I'll move it as I'm sewing, but I'm just going to pin because I know you guys will. Oh yeah, and then I forgot to tell you on that waist elastic, once you've done that N or that box, then go ahead and just pull everything so it lays back in there, and then you close that seam again, like you were sewing around before, and then you stopped, so you had a 3-inch opening. So then you sew from where you stopped, the back and forth, across that 3-inch opening to the next where you started, the back and forth. So you're just closing that casing for your waistband. Now you're going to have ruffles in the way. That's the only thing with this stuff, is the ruffles are always there, guys. There's just, and that's one of the things too on where you start your ruffle. So I started my ruffle lower, so I can't sew right on that crease, and I'm finding that out while I'm pinning this. So I'm going to sew just, and actually what I might do is zigzag this edge because I am that close, and it'll be fine. It's not a big deal. So I'll do that here once I get this all completely. That's where pinning though too, you find your little nuances rather than just taking off and sewing. I would have had to rip all that out when I got to that ruffle because I wasn't pinning, and I was thinking, oh, it'll work. And no, I would have got to the ruffle and told myself I have to take it back out and start over. Okay. So now I'm coming around to here, and there's a reason why I haven't cut this yet, because I want to make sure everything is going to be long enough. So I'm still not going to cut it, but now we've gotten around to this. I'm going to pull this first one for a second. We're going to turn this back because you don't want a raw edge sticking out. So now we're going to put it back in again. You can do that when you first start too. I just forgot to tell you to do that. So now when I get around to where it was at, I'm going to pull that pin, lay it over it, and then pin it again, okay? So there's that part that I switched. Now I'm going to go and I'm just going to zigzag this edge. Now I can cut it. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to cut it just a little bit longer so that it kind of tucks in there, okay? Don't cut it right at that edge. Give it about a 1/2 inch or a little more. And then that way you've got, you've got it completely covered where it needs to go. Okay, I'm going to zigzag real quick and I'll be right back. And this is where your free arm on your sewing machine comes in really handy. Just got to fuss because of the pins that keep sticking me every time I try and straighten it. And I gotta pull my pins while I'm going. It's gonna make sure you have your pin there, your pin holder or whatever you're using. pins in. You can straight stitch this if you want as well. I'm just zigzagging because I want a finished edge. It doesn't have to be finished. I just know for me it's going to lay nicer because of where that ruffle is landing. So I just want a little bit of a zigzag edge to it. As I get to that ruffled area that's going to be a little bit tougher, I'm going to go a little slower just to make sure everything lays nice. Now, when you get back around, I'm always a proponent of trimming my tail end. If I don't, invariably it just seems to get caught up and makes a mess, like a little tiny bird nest. And I learned just trim it before you get there. Make your life easy. So this is what it looks like when you're done on the inside or on the outside. So I sewed it to the outside, okay? Not the inside, the outside. All right, so now we've got this. And when you pull it, and it doesn't matter if the crease is there right now because we'll iron that out and it's going to ruffle up. You know, it's going to gather together. It's not even going to show. So looks like I've got a little bit here I need to trim. No, get that caught. Oh, didn't get that caught. Okay, let me catch that real quick. If you find an area like that where you zigzag off the edge, at least you can catch it now and just go back and re-zigzag it. It's not going to show. So. And that'll happen. I mean, that happens more than you realize. Okay, so now you've got this and you're going to, here's the edge I turned. There's the edge I turned, and there's the one behind it. So we'll go ahead and flip that over so that all that nice little other edge is right there. You're going to turn it. See how nice that is? You're just going to turn it all to the inside like that. So it creates this casing right there. You pin down that finished edge already with your pins. I always like to catch that part that I overlapped and get that in there real nice and neat. If you have any like stray tails from your serger, just get it underneath there. You don't have to trim them. Just put them in that little pocket. And I always like to sew that overlapped part down. I don't want to leave that in that edge that we're going to leave open to run the elastic around. So it should just naturally turn for you. Real easy, and just make it so that it lays nice and flat. And you can take it over to your iron and iron this part down as you turn it. And that's real easy too. And then you can pin it a lot faster as well. I'm a proponent of iron, 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 iron. It just makes your life so easy, especially when you're learning how to do a lot of these. Oh, Mary, I want to see your ruffle butt for Evelyn. I can't wait. And realize, guys, with new things that you're learning, be patient with yourself. The first one may go great. The first one may not go great. Just be patient. Okay, so when we get to what I'm going to do here, for some reason, I wasn't thinking this through quite right. So let me think for a second here on this. I'm going to leave because I placed my ruffle lower, and I told you guys to place it lower. You can move it up once we see what's going on here. Okay, we may adjust that bottom ruffle a little bit. I can't believe this is doing this, so we'll see. And you know, it might end up being that no matter what we do, it's going to do this. And there's a way around this, okay? Real easy way around this. So we're going to leave that open. That's going to be where our open area is, okay? So right now, I'm turning this, and my ruffle is right there, which there's no problem with that being right there. That's okay. It's just when I go to sew this casing, it's going to want to sew through these ruffles. So I'm going to leave that open right at that point because that's where we're going to feed this in, okay? And then what we're going to do is we're going to hand sew it. I know, that's the dreaded word, hand sewing. It's not bad, guys. It seriously won't be anything major. Hey, Pia. And I'm kind of glad this happened because hand sewing, people get scared, and I'm going to show you it's nothing. It really is nothing, especially on something like this. Super duper easy. So again, let's leave about, I'm going to leave, and it's just because of where this ruffle is at. So I'm going to start, I'm leaving about 2.5 inches open. And that's only because my casing, see how my ruffle is there? It's not a big deal. The hand sew is going to be super easy. Now I do want to pop this color out of here. I don't want this white in here. I'm going to put in black because that is the same color as my fabric on top. I don't want them to see it. Okay, so I'm going to quick like sew this, straight stitch it. And it doesn't have to be a real tight seam. It's only holding the elastic, so 3, 3.5, 4, whatever you're comfortable with, whatever you like that your machine will stitch out. Now, when you go to stitch this, though, make sure you move the ruffles out of the way. Everything's got to be out of the way. So if you have to pin them out of the way or something until you get used to this, go ahead and do that, but get them out of the way. And I'm using a setting that moves my needle to the left because of the way I want to sew this. So my needle is not going to sit right in the very middle. It's off to the left a little bit. And it just makes it easier for me to sew because then I can see, I can guide the edge of that bias tape along the edge of my foot on the left-hand side if I move that needle over. And that's the main reason why I do it. If you're comfortable with leaving it in the middle, leave it in the middle. Doesn't matter. And pull pins as you go, and try not to stick yourself is the big thing. Keep the ruffles out of the way. And for those of you that are missing Bear, he's on the floor. He's been rubbing up against my leg every now and then. The dog is upstairs. I know she's probably not happy with me because I'm not letting her be down here tonight. Okay, so since I couldn't show you how to do the waistband very well, I just explained it, I can show you on here. So maybe the second time around it'll make a little more sense to you. Okay, so here is the casing. I would probably use a casing that is the same color, but I'm using white so that you guys can really see what's going on. So here's the edge. You can kind of see the casing on the inside. That's where the elastic's going to go, is on that, okay? All right, so what we're going to do then is I'm going to grab this elastic, pin, safety pin like I showed you guys before, and we're going to pin it through the edge again and do the 3, like I was telling you, to give yourself just a little bit stability. And I always put that very last one right at the edge so that this is held and it's not, you're not trying to lead with that elastic, and that's always a pain. So that opening that we left, it's over here by the ruffle, and I also left my pin in so I knew where it would be. I'm going to pull the pin out. I'm going to use that pin to sink things down. And I'm going to stick this in, and it's probably easier if I turn it inside out to do this. You don't have to turn the whole thing, you just turn part of it. So I'm just turning this one leg in. And it's right there. There it is. So start at the edge here. And this casing is nice and wide like this, so it's going to be real easy to thread this through. So you just start threading it and gathering, and then pull, push it through. And this is where this free edge starts trailing in that I was telling you, you may need to pin it down to keep it from following you around. Okay. You see how it's pulling it? So I'm used to that going through, so I'm not going to do it. But right now, if you're not used to it, I would pin it. And then that way, when you get to this last part and you go, I have pulled it through a bunch of times, so I'm just warning you. I would pin when I get a little nervous, and I still do pin at times. Okay, so then I'm around. Here's my edge, so I want to grab that so I can keep it nice and flat so it doesn't twist. And I've got this one, and I see how it's laying like that. So I'm going to pull this out, paying attention to how I pulled that out, because I want to lay that on top of there so it does not twist. Now this one, I'm not going to get my N or my square through, and that's okay because this is not a wide elastic. I'm just going to go in, and I probably would zigzag this one, and you zigzag over the edge and then forward and then secure it. And you can go back and forth a few times on it, but you want to pull it completely out so that you got some room to move. Okay, so I'm going to do that real quick. And you don't have to change the colors in your machine. It's all good. tails here. Yeah. So now everything is all sewed together. And so I just kind of pull it like this, work it around. And we'll just look at the leg real quick, and then I'll show you how to hand sew that closed. It's super easy, super, super easy. And you don't have to, if that ruffle isn't going to be in your way, hand sew it closed. Okay. So that's nice and gathered. Okay. And then you would do the same thing on this other side. Okay. And then you hand sew at the same time if you have to do it on both sides. I probably would have to do it on both sides because my ruffle is landing in the same spot again. So I would have to hand sew both of these, but let me show you real quick how we do that. Super simple. Just get yourself a needle and matching thread. And if anybody tells you that you're never going to have to hand sew when you sew with a serger or a sewing machine, 99% of the time, probably not. Every now and then you're going to have to. So don't think you failed if you have to hand sew once in a while. It's just sometimes the nature of the pattern. It happens. So just find yourself a needle you're comfortable with and thread it up. I usually just come over to my sewing machine and I'll pull a little bit of thread out and cut it off. So I know that it's the thread that I was using. So it matches. And if it's white, it's white. It's no big deal if you've got extra, but most of the time we've all just got one color. I'm probably going to have a hard time putting this one in. Great. I always end up having to trim these. Never fails. I'll probably pull the tiniest eye possible. There we go. Okay, got it. So always double your thread. I find if I do a single, it's going to snap on me while I'm sewing, and you don't want that. You don't have to be real fussy about everything on your ends being really good. When I do my knots, I'll sit and wrap my ends around probably 3-4 times and then pull it through. You can do one overhand, but for me, it seems like they're too skinny and they pull through. So I sit and I'll wrap it around and then pull through about 3-4 times. And then my knot gets to be a good size. Okay, so then you're just going to go in, and this is not, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just go in and start where you backstitched, okay, and pull it through. And you're just going to do a catch. Now, on this one, you don't want to go all the way through. But if this is why I like matching my casing. So if this was black and that was black, I could just sew a straight stitch. And so I'm going to do that. I'm just going to sew a straight stitch, but realize this is white on black. And so I wouldn't normally do this, but you can just sew a straight stitch, and it doesn't have to be anything beautiful, perfect. I mean, your running stitch is going to look really nice, but it doesn't have to match what you did here. Nobody's going to see it. They would literally have to go looking for it to see it. No, they're not even going to know it's there. So you just close it up, all you do. Now, if you have this contrasting and that happens, then what I do is I just go grab, and I'm doing a blind hem, I grab like 2 threads and then go back up and grab a stitch up, grab, a running stitch up here. And then about 2 threads down below. And so if you want to hide it, that's how you do it. But I'm just going to do a running stitch just to close this off. But that's how you would hand sew it. And then be done. You get over here, you make a knot. It's no big deal. But I'm just kind of sewing this real fast. But take your time and just do, some good stitches. And then just make a knot. And then if you want to bury it, bury that knot. And then you want to go around about 3-4 times again. Just run it through. and then you pull your knot through, and then you snip it right there, and they won't even see it. And then you've got a nice long tail on the inside holding it too. So you just snip it right up there, and it buries it right inside. The quickest hand sewing, very easy. Okay, so then you're going to want to do that on the other side as well. Just rinse and repeat over on the other side. So, and I pulled all this out. Let me see. I'm going to go ahead and just measure it down because I pulled all that out. I'm going to do the 1/4 inch elastic up at the top. Mary, that's okay. You know, that might be a pretty cute little girl. Okay, so let me see. You know, and since that's going to be the thing that I'm going to decide and back up and not use this wide, and I can use this skinny, you don't have to use wide elastic. So am I seeing here? Probably about 5/8 of an inch. So to figure out if that's going to work, I want to go across my back of my ruffle, since that's the part that was driving me insane. And I'm going to just eyeball it once I get enough there to run this through. And I'm going to show you guys how I'm going to do that. There's a lot of, when you're learning how to do these things, these are the little fixes that you need to know. And I'm glad that we're kind of running into this, because I don't want you guys to feel like you're failing, because you're not. There's always a fix to things until you've done them a few times. Or you just do it on this really dark fabric like I chose, and it shows like crazy. Well, how do you quick like fix it without losing what you've just done? So this is the way. You just get skinnier elastic, and it's going to look just fine. And then I'll show you how we adjust the casing a little bit to create that eyeball thing, so that your eye is looking at it and it's saying, yeah, that's straight. And it's not going to be so far off that it's going to be bad. It's a visual thing. Get my pins in real quick to where they need to be before we do some adjustment here. Yeah, Mary, okay. Yeah, the extra large ruffles on the tiny one. Yeah, definitely a ball gown. Okay, so the way to fix that is if you've already done that and things are looking a little screwy, you can easily go back and take part of this off after you've already sewn it and just decide how much you need to take off. And then you just go back over to either, if you've got the serger, this is super easy. You just do the roll hem and decide how far up you're going to go and just zip it off and do it on each one. Maybe you do a graduated one, maybe one skinnier and a little longer and a little longer. And that's another easy fix if you're afraid that something's going to be a little wonky. Now, if you're doing the zigzag, then you have to go back and actually cut it, obviously. But you can always fix that stuff. It's not a done deal if all of a sudden you get done and you're like, oh, that looks really bad. You don't have to rip it apart. Okay. I didn't see you come in. I hope you haven't been sitting there for like forever and I'm chatting away. I'm sorry, Kay. Thanks, Joanne. Yeah, if you're watching, hit the like button if you haven't yet. Appreciate that, guys. Okay, so see how by using the skinnier elastic already, visually, I'm fine. It doesn't show that this is just a little bit lower. That fatter elastic just really emphasized it. So I'm really not going to adjust it, because what I would do if I wanted to, if it was still really bad, is I'd just take this side down just probably about 1/8 of an inch more, and you'd never even know. So super, super easy. And then you can just put in that skinnier elastic. So anyway, it's going to be like that. So let me do that real fast. And when you guys turn this, what I would do too is I'd go over and iron it until you're used to doing this stuff. And if you just iron the top part, that makes it so much easier. I'm sorry, Kay. Yeah, I was pretty focused. You got that correct. Mary, you're just embracing the wonky. Yeah, the first couple of times you do stuff, you know. I know I'm pushing you guys a little bit too, so just play with it. And you're going to learn so much the first couple of times you do these things that sure, when you screw up, that's how you learn, is by screwing it up. So it's all good. There's a lot of ways that you guys can put elastic in also. So if you find another way out there that's much easier for you, go with it. There's tons of ways. I just do the casing because it's pretty universal and pretty foolproof. But you can get to where you attach the elastic to the top up here and you sew it and you pull it and you sew it and then you just flip it over and finish it. That's a little more advanced, but you guys could be doing it really fast. So if you see that one, you want to give it a try, just do it on some scrap again and realize that you're pulling against it while you're sewing. So getting it started is kind of the hardest part. And once you've started, then you're good. You know, it should go pretty easy after that. All right, so again, I'm just going to measure to make sure my elastic's going to go through. Yep. All right, let me go zip this on there. Always double checking my elastic width. My eyeball is telling me it's too skinny, but when I measure it, it's like, oh, you got a long waist, you're good. I don't trust it sometimes. All right, so I made the casing for the waist. Now all we have left is to thread that through. Again, this is just going to be in the casing, so I can cut that off. Don't get caught. And I left my 2 pins in so I know where I started and stopped, and that's where I'm going to thread it through, is right there. Elastic size needs to be 17 inches. Okay. Again, have I told you how much I love these scissors? The ones that I keep losing and can't find? Yes, it is slick, Angela. If you can really get it down, it is super fast. But it does take practice. And if you're in a hurry, that may not be the time to try it. So, yeah. Now, I usually do it on my waistbands. This one, I probably wouldn't just because of this type of ruffle. If you can get it down and do it, great. But as you saw, I ran into a visual thing with this. So I would have had to rip all that out. And so it's better that I'm doing it this way. But most of the time, you're good to do it. And then also make sure if you're doing a skinnier casing like this, that you choose a safety pin that's the same width or skinnier than your elastic. I've done that a few times too. And then, oh, can't get it in. Well, it's no big deal. You pull it out and change it. But it was like, well, duh, you know. It's kind of like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole sometimes. Hey, Patty. Oh, I'm so glad you could join too. We've been having fun. The girls have probably been having a lot of fun. I've been focused, so. All right, now on this waist especially, I'm probably going to, even since I'm used to doing it, I'm probably going to pin it. Just because it's this skinnier elastic, and this stuff loves to slide a lot. So I'm almost to a point where I want to do that. I've got a little bit of playroom though, because the waist is big, but when you start getting to where things aren't moving and you kind of have to move it around, because you'll end up having to move the fabric around, otherwise you won't get anywhere. So I'm just going to shove that in there and pin it real quick. And then I know I can safely pull against it and it won't be a problem. Oh, good, Angela. Yeah, the cover stitches are nice. I don't have one yet. I'm still doing the mock cover stitch. And if you guys don't know how to do a mock cover stitch with your sewing machine, it's super easy. You just do, I take my serger, serge the edge, and then I've got a double needle that I put into my sewing machine. And this is a wider one. And then you run the 2 threads through and you turn your edge and sew on the top. And that's what I was pulling up. I'd marked on my machine with tape where I wanted the edge of my fabric to be, because I'm sewing on the top, so I can't see where that's at. And I already prejudged where I need to be. So I put that down. Oh, so slick. And it looked just like it. I was really excited. For the double needle, is that what you're talking about, Angela? Is the double needle? What size of needle do I use? Okay, so I'm coming around like I was telling you guys. All right, so I've got this pinned up at the waist, and I'm coming around, and here is what I was doing. So you got to make sure when you pull it through, don't twist it. Keep it nice and straight. So you know you were straight here. So I'm going to pull this pin off, hang on to it, so I know that this top part goes on top of this part here. Now, if you're afraid the first couple of times, just go ahead and pin that for a second until you can get everything under control and you can get over to your machine. There's nothing wrong with pinning it, so you know you don't lose it, it slides back in, any of that. And then I can just take and pull this out really good. All right, so I'm just going to go over and zigzag that close like I did with the leg one. And we're zigzag close. Now pull it back in so that your waist is all good. And then we're just going to go back now, and I've got to straight stitch from here to here where I threaded it through. Now remember, you've got your elastic in there, so don't sew through your elastic when you do this. And then you've also got to sit and hold, you've got to pull this so that it lays flat. So make sure when you're doing this, you kind of inch up, push your elastic all the way so it's up to the top, and you can feel there's a space down there and you're not going to catch it. And then just go back and sew that closed. And you can hold it with your hand so it's stretched open. Once you get it laid down, then put your left hand on it, hold it open while you do everything else. Hold that stretch out. Trim my tails. Okay, so we're going to pretend the other leg is done. I'm not going to do that. You guys already saw how we did that. And then all I have left to do is take care of my tails here. So you'll go ahead and thread those in. And you can thread those in before you do all this. I just didn't. I'm just going to make sure I do it. But you have a ruffle butt. Now, let's talk about some other types of ruffles, okay? So these are nice and big and flowy. And those are fun, and everybody loves those kind. But what if you decided you wanted to do a little tighter of a ruffle butt? Because these are cute too. That's what was on that sunsuit that I showed you a little earlier. So you just decide how wide you want to make these. So these, you start with the ruffle the exact same way. You cut your strip, but this strip I cut, it's about, if you're going to use a serger, make it about 2 inches wide. You can still do 2 inches if you're going to do your zigzag as well. It might get a little close together, but you see we've got some room, so you're probably good with 2 inches. So then go ahead and take care of your edges, just like we did. So that's the very first thing you do, take care of your edges. Then you're going to, rather than gather at the top like we did for this ruffle, you're going to run your gather right down the middle, okay? So you can do the gather either the way I showed you earlier, where we hold on to the thread, or you can go ahead and run your stitch. I'd use a thicker thread though, if you're going to do it the old way, where you just pull and push it down and pull and push it down. If you do that way, if you do the old way where you pull and push down, make sure you knot this other end before you get started. Long tails, but I would still knot the other end because it gives you something to work against. So when you start pushing down, you're going to want to move them all the way down to that knot. So you're pulling and then you just push all the way down and then you come back. Now don't get your thread again out far. You're going to snap it. So you got to be really careful. So that's why I kind of like to find that other method. And if you guys can really work on that method, I think that that's probably the smarter one for you. You'll have a less chance of snapping your thread. But anyway, once you get all this as tight as you like it, then lay it down, make sure it's wide enough against the back side of your bloomer, and lay it down, pin it in, tie the other end once you know you've got enough, or whether you've got to loosen it up just to have enough come across. You may, like I said, have to do 2 strips, depending upon how tight you want it. So then lay that one down on top, do 3 of them, or 2 or 4 or whatever, depending on how wide you go. If you want 4 is going to get a little tough. 2 might be a little sparse unless you do 2 really big wide ones. So if you just want 2 really big wide ones, I'd probably make these about 3.5 inches wide. So then go back, and these you really have to pin a lot. And that's the only difference, is really pin on these. So start at the bottom again. Work your way up. So place where you want at the bottom. There's no rhyme or reason to any of this. So I put it on, and this is a different bummy pattern too. This one was a harder bummy pattern just because it had 4 pieces instead of 2. That's why I just put you guys into this one, because it was the front and the back, where this has 2 pieces that make the front and 2 pieces that make the back. So it's a wider area here, which makes this a little easier. So if you're fighting with your ruffles, this may not be the pattern for you. Get something that's a little wider. This was just a free pattern. So I just pulled it because I don't want you guys to have to go spend money just to learn how to do something. But it's all about the same, no matter which pattern you do. So anyway, the figure out where you're going to do it. And like we said, mark, put them on there, pin them on there. This one, though, you can pin all of them on because they're not overlapping each other. So I would pin all of them on first, and then that way you can adjust if things are not 100% straight or 100% the way you like them before you go sew them down. So then go over and sew just like I showed you, and then you're going to put them together. So then you're going to run your side seams and capture the edge of this ruffle into that side seam. You do not want anything floating except for this one little edge. Just make sure, you know, when you're catching your side seam, that you go back when you've pinned it and just make sure all of these are nice and free, because it would be too easy to accidentally catch like way out here in, and then all of a sudden it's kind of wonky. So yeah, you just got to just double check. You can pin everything, then turn it inside out and go and look and make sure, oh yeah, everything's caught just right, so that you can go sew it. It's super easy. These aren't bad, guys. They just take a little bit longer to do because it's a little tighter of a ruffle. That's the only part that takes longer. Now, you don't have to do this tight of a ruffle, but I love the super tight ruffle when they're done like this. Just for me, I think that's awesome. You don't have to zigzag stitch, Sandy or Sarah, on the legs. I only did it because for me, when I got, it was super close here. And you guys are you're gonna hit this. I know this is gonna happen to you. So I didn't have that much room. And with a straight stitch, if I straight stitched it, it would be too easy for me to go off and completely miss right there. So if I zigzag, I'm going to catch it regardless of what I'm doing. That's the only reason I zigzagged, because I knew it would be foolproof. So these little nuances like this They're going to happen, but it had to happen because of the style of this was creating this. So I know when I go to do these, I'm probably not going to use this style to create this kind of a bum just because I'm going to run into this. I know I am. So I'm probably going to grab a pattern that has a little more width going here and not such a high cut leg. Just because I know these ruffles, I like these ruffles to be really full and thick. So the only way I'm going to do that without them being, and I could move this way up to the top, and so it's part of the casing, and then I wouldn't run into this problem. So maybe I'll do that too. I haven't decided yet. I kind of like a little bit of a space at the top rather than this being way up there, but you might like it way up there. So if you like it way up there, you won't run into this problem down here. So just little things when you start, like I said, I mash up patterns, and that this is a mashup, okay? So I just took a plain, just a plain bummy bloomer pattern made for a cotton woven, not for a knit. And then I added the ruffles to it. So these are just little tricks that, you know, when you're going along, you're like, oh, well, it's not 100% great, but this is how we can get around it and make it work. Yeah, Angela, did you notice my old girl, my Janome, when I was over there? I don't know if you came on in time to see it, but yeah, that's my old girl. I love her. I love her. I've had her for about 20 years, and she still runs so nice. What did I miss? What did I miss? Tasha, what did I miss? I missed something. Oh, I missed something. Okay, I'll have to go back and read through that. But anyway, this is just a basic, easy way to do, guys. No, you can go grab any bummy pattern and add ruffles. There, you can go out and search styles of ruffles and get all kinds of ideas. So just realize, oh, how I have the double needle threaded. Yes, I can do that. Let me change that out for you here. Super easy, guys. Super, super easy. Let me put the double needle in. I'll bring the camera over here in a second. I just want to get the double needle put in there first. Okay, I'll bring the camera over now so you guys can see what I'm doing. Oh, good night, Sandy. I'm glad you joined us. Okay, so all right. So now you can see, I think you can see, I may have to pull you in just a little bit closer here. All right, so here's the double needle, and it just sits in like you would a normal needle. And what I do is I just double check with my foot real carefully to make sure that that opening in my foot is wide enough for the width of the double needle. Now, I did have one from previous machine that they sent, and it was real close together. And so I stitched it out, and I didn't like the way it looked. I thought it looked just really too close. So I went and bought this one that's a lot wider. And I know there's some that are wider than this yet too. But you just got to get one or two, and then just find the foot that it works with. This is my standard foot, and so it goes through no matter what. So it's good. And you can hold the needle up to the foot, hold the foot up to the needles too, without doing it this way too. I'm constantly checking stuff. I've just learned to do that. Okay, so super easy. This is where, though, I have that thread stand. Let me show you what I've got. And I do use this in this instance just to make things a lot easier. And I know a bunch of you girls know about this thread stand because we've talked about it for the single needles. So this thread stand here that has, I'm just going to take this off. I'm afraid of making you guys sick, but it's just going to have to happen because I'm showing you too much. All right, so this thread stand here. So, and then it carries your thread up through here. So a lot of people have bought those for the single needles. Well, I use that for my double as well. So I'm going to set my, and I'm just going to use a different color. So I'm going to just put this purple here. And we're going to set it right there. Now, these usually come with a pin. I'm missing the pin, and so I need to mimic the pin. So this isn't going to work quite as easily. And I'm sorry, I'm trying to double do this. This is where using my phone would probably be so much easier, but we can't do that right now. All right, let me see what's going on here. So there's that up through there. What I'm going to do, I've threaded the first one through like you normally do, brought it down to here. Okay. I'm going to take this second one over here. It goes through just exactly like the first one. So you thread it through, and this is hard to do with one hand, guys. And it goes through, up through the top, bring it back down. Now, you guys are going to notice down here, I'm trying to see, you guys can see, right here, this side and this side is where you can pull your thread through. So you want to pull one through one side and the other through the other side. So my white one is on that side. My purple one came over on this side. So you guys will have to go look at your machines and you'll see that. I think everybody has that. Now my clip might look different than yours, but there's clips there that you put your thread through, and you should have one on one side and one on the other. So once I've done that, then I just thread this side needle because the thread came through here. This side needle gets the purple. That's the side the purple came through, and the white came through on that side, and that goes in there. Then when you thread through, you just treat it like it's one thread. Pull it through here just like you normally do, and pull it back under. That's all you do. That's it, guys. And then I just run a straight stitch because your machine will know no matter what that it's just a straight stitch. It doesn't have to be a special stitch. So that's how you thread a twin needle. Oh, good night, Joanne. So I hope you caught that, Joanne. So anyway, that's what I did for the leggings for the harem shorts that I sent you, Anna. You'll love to see that if you're still on here. So that's how I did your fake cover stitch, if you want to look at that, Anna. But anyway, super easy, guys. You got to try it. It seems intimidating, but it's not. Just get in there and thread that machine and just make sure that you've got your thread going through each side of the needle into the catch. And then it's going to thread right through. But otherwise, the top of the machine, you thread them both, but thread them separately. Don't thread them together. Don't put them together and run them through as one. Thread the first one, then thread the second one. That way they don't twist in there. They stay laying completely separate. So did that make some sense to everybody? I want you guys to all try that because it was so cool. I was so excited. I actually, when I turned it, after I serged it and then I turned it down, I took it over and I ironed it really, really, really good. So it'd be nice and flat and everything would go through slick. And then when I laid it down to lay my, in fact, you can kind of see this tape right here was the one of my guidelines for, and then I'd pulled this one up because I was trying to sew that other thing, but I had that one laying nice and straight too. And so then I had my two guidelines because you can't see where your serged seam is underneath. You can feel it with your fingers, but the first couple of times I do it, I don't want to just feel, I want to make sure. And then I matched the thread on the underneath to my serger and thread on the top to the fabric. And it went super slick. Now I did have to move my tension quite a bit. You just have to try it a few times and then look at the back side. My tension really needed to change quite drastically to get it to lay nice and flat on the back, but it's still going to look fine if it's not 100% good because it's going to blend in with that serged part and you're not even going to see it as long as you use the matching thread. And it's going to be nice and solid and look great on the front regardless. So I say try it, guys. All right, guys, you have any other questions? Now that I've got you off of my thing, we are around here. I'll read you what's going on. Of course they're wired up, Anna, because you want to do something else and you're tired. Yeah. Any questions, guys? Trying to remember what 2 weeks are. I've got it over there. I've got to put you guys down for a second. I'll go grab my thing and tell you what we're doing in 2 weeks. Okay, we're back. Okay, so 2 weeks. Yep, that's what I'm looking to see, what my next one is here. Okay, so I have this scarf bib, scarf/bib that I was making, and it kind of ended up being this really cool look for boys or girls, but especially for the boys. And I'm trying to pull some more boy stuff in. So it's like this solid piece of fabric, and then you have a different piece on the other side, and then we put snaps down it. And then I want to do a couple of versions of that. So I want to do one also that has the handkerchief. So we'll probably do 2 or 3. If I can come up with a third one, we'll do a third one. But we're going to do like these scarf bibs. And then if you want to embroider on them, you can. And so I'll show you some of those things as well. So we'll kind of mash it up a little bit with that. It's really kind of fun. Hey, Cindy. And they're really cool. And the fabrics that you use really make them either very trendy, very modern, very laid back, very rustic, and you can do so many things with them. Very, very fun. So that's what I'm doing. And then tomorrow night, I don't know what Amber's doing because she had it planned out that we were going to do the Lovey and the Passy clip. And I don't know if Amber, are you still on? Don't know. If you're still on, Amber, is that what you're planning on doing? Because I know you did the video with that about a week or 2 ago. So I thought, well, maybe you're not going to do that, or maybe you had a version different that you were going to do. So anyway, she's tomorrow night. We ended up being back to back now because she had her birthday last Monday, and that's normally the day she was my off Monday, but she took her birthday off. And so now we're back to back. So realize that going forward, it's going to be me and then her. And then we'll just have our normal lives next week, back to back. And then Gabby will be back eventually, guys. She's still trying to get her house stabilized and put back together and remodeled, and no more winter storm crap going on with it. So send her some love, guys. If you can get on and send her some good messages, I'm sure she's really just tired of it all. And she wants to come back so bad. She can't wait. She's got that new sewing machine. I know she wants to use that with you guys. She's got, I know she's got a whole slew of stuff she wants to do with you guys. So let's just, give her some love, and hopefully she'll be back soon. Then at the end of the month, right after I do my scarf bib, the next night Amber's doing boy shorts. So we got some boy stuff coming up. Then in May, I'm doing another toddler dress. And then I'm going to do boys swim shorts, because we're going to be right before Memorial Weekend. The week before Memorial Weekend, we're going to do boys swim shorts. And she's got a nursing cover and her bapron. She calls it the bapron. So it's like a little child's apron. So that's what we got coming up in April and May. We got some fun stuff there. And then June, we got some more stuff too, but I'm going to wait. I'm not going to tell you guys what that is. And then we'll have to get back together again for July and August. But I know Ediani mentioned a vest. So if you guys have any other things you're thinking you want us to teach, please let us know. We love to know, because we get together and we're like, what are we going to do? Has anybody said anything? And sometimes we have some ideas and other times we don't. And then we really have to struggle sometimes. We come up with things, but we would sooner be doing things that we know you guys want to do. So let us know what you're feeling and what you're wanting some more instructions on. And even if it's something we've already done in the past and you want us to redo it again, if I did it and you want to see Amber's take on it, or if Amber did it and you want to see my take on it, we can do that, because we've talked about doing that as well. So just let us know. We just want everything to be what you guys want to learn. So anyways, I hope you guys had a good evening. I can't believe it's already been 3 hours. So I have got to start getting ready for the upcoming week. It's going to be a busy week. Last week was busy. And so, yeah, it's Sunday night. And my Sunday nights with you guys are always so much fun. Always, always so much fun. I know, I wish there was a live every night, Angela. That could possibly, I can jump on, or Amber might jump on every now and then and just kind of do something a little impromptu. So don't be surprised if you start seeing that coming up, now that we're kind of getting used to doing all of this. And there might be something that one of us is working on that all of a sudden we're like, hey, I just need to show you guys while I'm doing this. And so we'll just throw a live on and we'll announce it. But be aware, turn that bell on, that notification bell on, so that if we do that, you get a notification right away. People are really good about posting in Discord, but I know sometimes people miss those posts too. So if you subscribe and hit the notification bell, then those are your best chances of getting them. And I'll try and put, a little bit of a notice. I won't just all of a sudden boop. I'll try and give you guys 5 to 10, 15 minutes notice before I hop on, if I can do that. So anyway, love you guys. This is always so much fun. And I'm glad you guys come and join me, because I have so much fun with you guys, and it just makes my Sunday nights. I was so tired when I first started, and I'm not tired anymore because of you guys. So thank you. Thank you for being awesome. And we'll see you guys real soon. All right. Love you guys. Bye.